What's up YouTube, and welcome back for part 18 of the STI build. In this episode I plan on relocating the battery from under the hood to back in the trunk, or the boot. I have everything I need except for the battery, believe it or not, which I'm hoping Tyler's going to drop off to me. But he's already given me the cable. I have a box and a couple other items I'll show you. So I'm not going to get as into detail as I did in my last battery relocation, just because Subarus are very similar from generations, from different models. So I'm going to show the things that I may have not have shown in the last one. But first we are going to kind of set up the box and kind of figure out where I'm going to put the breaker, because this box is a little bit smaller and I don't think I can put the breaker on the inside of the box, but I need it somewhere somewhat protective, because I don't want to, something hitting the breaker. You hit a corner and the ball rolls into the breaker and snap, you lose all your power and you're like, what happened, right? So the breaker needs to be in a location where stuff isn't going to bump into it, so I need to kind of figure that out. So as you can see, I got a whole pile of 2-gauge cable, kind of past what a Subaru needs, but you want the ultimate electrical connection from front to back. This is gonna do the job, and the battery should flow through this no problem. Same style box to the one that I did in the past, except this one is a little bit smaller. This is the same size that I have actually for the 240, which I'll be doing in the future. Gives you plenty of places to actually come out of the lid with your connections. I mean, there's 8 places to come out of. The top of the lid's got some venting, and they give you this little hold down strap which kind of just holds the lid on, but got to figure out a way to keep this battery fastened within the box too. So a couple other items I have. I went and picked up a pile of these brass terminals. These guys aren't cheap, and I did pick up a variety of sizes, so I get some for 4-gauge, 2-gauge, and 1-gauge. I've got a bunch of terminals from this little solar setup that I had at one point, and so they are used, but they are just like new still. Maybe give the ends a little cleaning. And then this is the same breaker that I used in my car, in the wagon. So it's a 250 amp, which is more than enough to crank over the starter motor, but if anything shorts, the breaker will snap open and kill all power. So that's what I mean by the push button. So if we have power on right there and something rolled into this and hit the button, you could kill connection to the car and be left stranded until you figured out, oh, my breaker's been snapped. You can start putting the ends onto the cable and kind of figure out what I'm going to do with the breaker. I even had the idea of maybe inside the box. I don't know if there's enough room, or I don't know about finding a safe location on the lid, but then the wiring's going to always be attached to the lid and it might be difficult to access that way, so I've really got to think about this. I've come up with some type of plan. I've attached the circuit breaker right to the lid, because I noticed these kind of stopping points for the lid will be deeper than what the breaker will be, and I kind of just put a temporary battery in there for fitment, and I realized all that's going to go on there, so I got some just regular pan bolts going through there, and it's all fastened in place. So really I was thinking, well, now that it's on the inside, I kind of got to make the wiring long enough so that you can take the lid off and rest it down out of the way if you need to access the battery or charge it or whatever. So I'm planning a length of wire going from the positive terminal to the breaker, but when the cover's on, it'll basically loop in here, and I'm hoping that my plan's going to work. But I guess because I don't have the actual battery I'm going to use, I'm not quite sure exactly how deep the terminal is going to be. So with this kind of started anyway, I'm ready to move on to actually making some of my lengths of cable, because I obviously need a shorter length from the positive terminal to the breaker, and then I'll need one for to lead from the back of the car to the front of the car, and then obviously a couple grounds. So I'm going to do them as I kind of need them, so that I get some proper lengths going. So I'm going to start with the first smallest one, and if you haven't seen me do this in my last video, you should give it a watch, because it's a good technique to use, and fairly easy.
You ain't messing with the flow, you ain't messing with my vision, messing with the money, you ain't messing with decisions. Yeah, you messing with the team, then you messing with the squad. Mess with one of us, you be messing with them all. Yeah. Staying up late, making it right, living it up to my name. Focus on doing it better. You just be doing the same, you doing it lame. I'm doing like everything changed. Forget all the money, forget all the fame. I still would've done it if they would've played all of the music I make every day. Like whoa, crazy the way the world goes. Blind when you look at it close. Zoom out when you viewing the picture. Perspective is all that we know. I'm all on my zone, I'm all on my own. Keep making a difference, I'm chasing the tones. I'm finding myself with the more that I grow. Get out of my way as I'm paving the road. You ain't messing with the flow, you ain't messing with my vision. Messing with the money, you ain't messing with decisions. Yeah, you messing with the team, then you messing with the squad. Mess with one of us, you be messing with them all. You ain't.
Like you saw in that little time lapse, that's how I like to do these terminals. I do not like to crimp them. The solder, when it sinks down inside the end of that, and then just the amount of meshed wire that goes into the solder, I mean, it's a extremely good connection and very, very difficult to get apart. So I kind of gone ahead and I made up the short cable to go from the battery positive post up to the breaker. I made myself kind of a ground wire, because he didn't get me any black, so I just kind of wrapped some electrical tape around it to indicate it is the ground. So that'll go from that to chassis ground somewhere. And then I have the main battery cable going through the car, so it's all the way in the trunk. It comes along the passenger side, it comes through the grommet where everything else has been coming through. Gonna have to get some wiring loom to go over top the cable. Not only to kind of hide it, but just give it that extra bit of insulation being under the hood. And then route it through here. It'll come up to the factory location. Tyler is going to get a little junction box of some sort that we can attach in here, but just for temporary, I'll get the cable as long as I need it, and then I'll put out another terminal end on that, and we can just fasten it to the battery cable to at least get it so that if we don't have the junction box by the time we want to start it, we can still start it. And the ground, I gotta kind of figure out how I'm going to actually attach the chassis ground out here. I'm not quite sure yet. There's not a lot of bigger bolts to attach to, so I might have to make my own. I don't know yet. Haven't gotten that far. But even at this point, I can kind of tell that I'd like to get the battery at least in the box, so I know how the box is going to be made up, so that I can get it kind of situated in the trunk to where it's going to be sitting. And then as long as I know the distance, I can permanently install the cable that's in the car now, and then just worry about final connections everywhere. So I didn't quite finish this last night because I didn't have the battery, and I didn't have the loom, so I decided I would do it today. Well, Tyler dropped the battery off last night, so it is an Optima. It's something he's had for a while, but he knows it's a good battery. He's been using it in his light truck, and he's kept it nice and charged all winter long. So I get home from work and I've got no power. Fortunately, I have like, I don't know, 5 batteries for the camera, and the recorder's always fully charged. The light's probably relatively charged, and at least I have some window light to come in. But yeah, we had some really stormy weather. You can see that branch out in the backyard's falling down, so I mean there's probably a tree knocked out a power line, and I might not have power for a while. So I'm gonna do what I can, and then I might have to resort to finishing this up tomorrow. So I've got the battery kind of set up the way I want it. I've got the terminals on the battery, the positive lead coming up to the breaker. I've got the ground. I've retained the cable to the box there, kind of retain that cable there, and then I also put a zip tie here to make sure this doesn't start wiggling around and causing a bad connection. But I realized, well, I'm going to have to cut these zip ties. I got to take the battery out because I really want to mount this, fasten this box well to the car body. So the battery's going to have to come out to do that. And I've got an idea of where I want to put it. And I'm thinking right in this back corner. Ideally you'd put it opposing the driver, but he's already got a lot of weight here. There's a big speaker box. It probably weighs almost as much as the battery, if not. And the cabling I have seems to be long enough. I should be able to get it over to this side. And then, I mean, there's a nice solid place to actually sit the battery box. So sitting off to the side there, it kind of stick out of here a little bit and still give a little bit of trunk space for how much he actually has in here. So I've got to try and figure out how I'm going to fasten the box to either the floor or something, and at least so it won't slide around. Okay, so I've got the battery box located where I want. I did find some brackets that I had 4 of these, and I can't remember what they're to, but I decided I would use them. And the box is only really fastened to the trunk card. Although the weight of the battery is going to majorly sit on that body back there, and this is very well retained. I mean, the battery is going to have to slide around with the entire card. So I mean, is it perfect? No. Is it ideal? I think so. So it should still have enough room to actually sit the battery down into place. So that's what I'm going to do now, and we're just going to make sure that all the wiring and everything's going to line up properly. So this will be the basic layout. This ground lead will go back over there to where I can get ground. The positive lead is actually going to come in onto the breaker on this side, and it'll exit out this recessed area right here, so that when the lid goes on, when it's fastened down into place, then the positive lead will come out this side here. Looks like it just gave enough room to get that cover in there too. And then they give you a little space underneath here so you can actually slide through the strap, and so you can actually strap the lid down, so if you know the car isn't in a rollover or something like that, it should stay within the box. Not that Tyler's going to be rolling his car. So at this point I'm kind of ready to start fastening up everything. But I tried to locate a good ground underneath the hood, like, you know, good sized, at least 5/16 or 8mm bolt that will retain the ground wire or the cable. And I can't seem to find anything on the driver's side, which is kind of the issue I had on my car. And I ended up putting mine on the strut tower. Well, I don't think it's the greatest grounding spot. I did find a good grounding spot over on the passenger side, but that would require me to run a cable from the driver's side to the passenger side. And I'm kind of at the point I'm out of cable. Like I might have a little bit of it left, but it's not that long. So I really thought that I might have got more done tonight, but I forgot to get the wiring loom myself, and now I'm starting to realize I'll probably need more cable, because I'll probably end up running that ground over to the passenger side where I see that really good grounding spot. But at least I got the battery situated in the trunk, and all the cable ends are done at that end, so it just needs to be all fastened up. So hopefully I can just make a quick clip tomorrow night and finish it up, because I'm not quite sure how much I'm going to be able to edit tonight. I still don't have power. Okay, so it is the following day. I'm off work. I did stop and get some wiring loom and some more cable. I've gone ahead without the camera and started installing the majority of it. So I'll just kind of go over what I've done. I've left stuff open so that you can get a really good look at what I did. But I basically come right to the battery cables, because we kind of wanted to mount a junction box in here somewhere to so that it would have a junction point, but we're just going to use the factory cable for now. So I got a 5/16 bolt going through that, holding everything together, and the wiring for the he had some kind of messy wiring in here, so I need to clean a bunch of it up. And the same for the ground. So the ground, just basically they're going to get taped up, they're going to get hard fastened right down into place using that piece right there so that nothing moves. So that the main battery cable, or the positive lead, I have wiring loom going all the way over to the firewall. The ground side I left open because it is just a ground, and I mean, it's the ground cable that I bought, it's actually like really durable stuff, really high quality stuff. So both cables kind of come up here with some of the HID wiring and follow along the brake lines and zip tie it all in place. And the ground comes down along here, zip tied to this bracket, and then comes across the front, and that's my grounding point right down there. So I'm hoping that's going to be a good ground. I was thinking of putting it actually on the rear pitch stop mount bolt, but I realize this is welded to the car. I don't know how many points it's actually welded, and I know they take a pretty good hit when the car's in an accident. So you know, that may be another option actually. So coming over to the passenger side of the car where the cable comes down through, basically drops down through there behind this kick panel. It should be able to sit between the trim and the weather stripping, I hope. And then I actually had to take off this B-pillar panel just to get the cable in behind there. And then I've got it underneath this panel, and it kind of just routes up in here. There's a little tiny bit of access cable in there. I've got it routed in behind there, and then up along the back over to the battery. And the ground is pretty much going to come from the battery and loop over the same spot, and I'm going to put it right on this bolt down here, hoping that it's going to be a good grounding spot for me. So I'm kind of at the point that I'm ready to finalize everything. I just need to tape up those connections, zip tie a couple things in place, put some trim panels back on, and install the ground onto the chassis, and then I'll be able to at least turn the breaker on. I'm going to turn the key in the on position just to see what kind of power we have. I'm not going to crank the engine over, but I want to see what kind of power we're actually distributing just with what's done. So I'm at the point I think I'm ready to hit the switch. I've got these connections here really taped up very well, really fastened very well, really tight. Not going to pose any kind of problem. I've got the trim back in on the inside of the car on that side, and I've got the ground all hooked up back here. I basically have all this set in place so you can kind of see how it's going to sit. I haven't put the strap on yet because I'm going to hit the switch, but as you can see, the lid will kind of come off and just kind of rest like that. You can see I got another zip tie right to the lid to retain this cable, make sure this terminal doesn't come loose. So let's see what happens. And already I see the security light flashing, and we just unlocked the doors. And I also don't have to worry about fuel. The fuel pump fuse is not in yet, and the whole car is coming live. So we'll just leave it like that for now. That's good to know. And the starter motor is the component on the vehicle that draws the most power. That's why we have a battery, such a large battery, is to turn that starter motor. And if it's not getting the full flow of amps that it needs to turn, then it's gonna turn slow, or it's not gonna turn at all. And that'll be the true test to see if the connections are good enough, and it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be good. So I'm a whole step further in finalizing the build. So I plan one more video on doing basically a cleanup and finalizing. Like, I've got to get the wastegate on and a couple small items with emissions. I have to think about a catch can. So you know, I'll kind of speed through that video probably and just try and get as many parts on as possible. And then I'm thinking one final startup video, which I'll put in all the fluids. We'll start it up. We'll actually have to put a tune into the car, start the car. So aside from the car, I started editing this video last night, and I've been using a different piece of software to do it. I've never used it before. It's kind of familiar. It's very similar to what I used to use, but I've kind of got to upgrade my software because I'm planning 4K video, and it's basically here. I'm ready for the next video, probably film in 4K. It is just another GoPro, but I think it's just going to add a lot more to the detail to the video, regardless of where I am, inside the garage or out. And then having the second GoPro to, you know, mount on cars during the summer to do extra footage will be kind of neat. And auto vlogs, I've been meaning to do an auto vlog, and I have to soon. So yeah, hopefully expect a little bit of a video upgrade from what you've seen in the past. Anyway, if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button for me. Leave your questions and comments further down below, and I will see you in the next one.